My name is Laura Santos, and I am here presenting my research project regarding misrepresentation of queerness in contemporary young adult media. This study portrays how gender and sexual identity reflect and exert influence upon the intended audience's beliefs. Considering that mainstream shows make up a large portion of the media children and youth consume, the media's portrayal of the LGBTQ community normalizes negative behaviors and assumptions for young adults and children. Through the lens of queer theory analysis, selected television shows, films, and online streaming shows are among the subjects of this study regarding misrepresentation. By analyzing stereotypical portrayals and lack of inclusion of the LGBTQ community in shows such as One Day at a Time, Sex Education, Control Z, Steven Universe, and the film XXY, this paper will analyze the following questions. How do these portrayals affect the subconscious mind, and how do they weaponize identity? How do these patterns ingrain different types of harmful conditioning and stereotyping on young audiences well into adulthood? Moreover, the media commonly showcases queer characters falling in love with heterosexual counterparts that are unattainable and even abusive. Additionally, the lack of queer protagonists or multidimensional characters affects the purpose of representation. Screenwriters build queer characters to fit any change in narrative, without any regard for consistency or roundness. Thus, queer characters are just fillers without any meaningful arc of storyline. Often, screenwriters create shallow characters with early death or dismissals, as queer characters are more likely to die than their heterosexual counterparts. Overall, the way the LGBTQ community is represented tends to perpetuate patterns based on stereotypes, externalize homophobia, and impose inaccurate expectations on the community at large. So first, to understand and wear the lenses of queer theory analysis, it is relevant to understand the concept of heteronormativity, which consists of the societal assumption that every person is heterosexual by default. As some argue, the abomination of this ritual is intertwined with people's personal beliefs and judgment. The idea of heteronormativity is difficult and limiting to the binary identifications of gender and sexuality. If society were not to assume heterosexuality and gender identity, no one would have to come out of the closet. Heteronormativity leads to compulsory heterosexuality, which assumes that all relationships and social institutions, such as family, are to be heterosexual in nature. Heteronormativity paradigms make the LGBTQ community and all that falls outside of that pattern an alternative or variation of the heterosexual institution. This paper also delves into the idea of stereotypes and assumptions made by those who observe the deviant or other. Endemically, media and entertainment are meant to reflect the taste and beliefs of the audience in order to make it more accessible for the public. Therefore, with heteronormativity, many stereotypes arise regarding the LGBTQ community and those who do not conform with the binary. The concept of internalized homophobia is also shaped through the assimilation of stereotypes and beliefs from society's homophobic patterns adopted by queer individuals. Heteronormative society perpetuates a recurring message of inequality and wrongful assumptions towards the LGBTQ community by spreading misleading beliefs and discrediting minorities in order to retain the privilege and power over the other. For instance, educator Achibi Powell argues that lesbians and gay men are taught to act out these lies and stereotypes, doubting themselves and other gay people, sometimes called horizontal hostility. This is the way lesbians and gay men collude with the perpetuation of heterosexism. Subconsciously acting out these deceptions reinforces society's beliefs and stereotypical behavior while forcing those individuals into lives they did not choose. Powell also addresses the notion that perpetuates internalized homophobia. For the heterosexist system to be maintained and passed on the next generation, we all must believe the messages, lies, and stereotypes to some degree and collude with heterosexism by performing our assigned roles. Therefore, Powell suggests that internalized homophobia is necessary for the heteronormative system to continue to exist. Playing out stereotypical characters reaffirms, validates, and justifies heterosexual entities to continue to hold power and dominance over societal expectations and perceptions. Identifying misrepresentation and toxicity towards the LGBTQ community allows audiences to understand its harmful effects. Queerness is often portrayed as the root of unhappiness and flaws in character and plots. In the book, Locating Queerness in the Media, Jane Campbell and Teresa Carlilli analyze one of these patterns found among television shows such as Downton Abbey. They analyze the portrayal of one of the gay characters, Thomas Barrow, and his public image based on a negative light. Critiquing the importance of class inequalities, the fact that he is labeled as a gay villain on the series reinforces that he and his homosexuality is a threat to the social order. To struggle against the class system, to question one's position and the power of the upper class, is seen as insubordination. They observed the different patterns found among the representation of the LGBTQ community in the media, which tends to not reflect uplifting circumstances, but rather highlights shame, loneliness, and unhappiness due to their queerness. Campbell and Carlilli also suggest that queer characters, specifically gay men, have been demonized as untrustworthy, evil, and seducers of young men. Also, films' depictions of gays and lesbians are often cast as pathological, predatory, and dangerous, due to their double lives, i.e., passing as heterosexual. Some consider the LGBTQ community untrustworthy because of their learned ability to disguise, act, and deflect their true identities to everyone, including their most inner circles. Heteronormativity forces individuals to live double lives in order to ensure the survival and peace of mind. Ironically, society discriminates against these duplicitous lifestyles that they encourage. And queer individuals behave and maintain the idea of heterosexuality while feeling ostracized by the lack of acceptance of their true sexuality and gender identity. The production of TV shows, films, and media aims to be a reflection of the audience and general public's values and personal beliefs. So the representation of the LGBTQ community is very scarce and rarely portrayed in a positive light. One common phenomenon that occurs when understanding homosexuality and its perception is the justification for being lacking or deviant. Perceived deviancy often affects female members of the LGBTQ community. Some believe that due to their attraction to women, they lack their biological urges to reproduce and find a male. And at some point, the premise of daddy issues and or disappointment from male figures, either paternalistic or otherwise, lead to the justification of lesbianism. This is well illustrated by Judith Butler's Gender Trouble. She argues the following. It's presumed that female homosexuality issues from disappointed heterosexuality. As observation is set to show, could it not be equally to the observer that heterosexuality issues from a disappointed homosexuality? With this excerpt, the counter-argument about queerness, specifically among women, discredits the wrongful assumption that female sexuality is dependent on the male figure. And at the same time, the misconception essentially assumes that all female homosexuality sprouts from mediocre or lack of decent heterosexual relationship. This is illustrated in some forms of media, as it is a common assumption that if a woman finds the right man, she will go back to normal. For instance, in the show One Day at a Time, an online streaming sitcom based on the daily lives of a Cuban-American family in Los Angeles, includes Elena's storyline. As a teenager, she feels uncomfortable with the idea of heterosexuality and gender roles imposed on her by her Latinx family. When she finally decides to come out of the closet, there's decent support and acceptance despite her family's religious beliefs. In one instance, her mother is somewhat troubled with this new reality, and she comments to a friend, "Does she all of a sudden think all men are disgusting?" Elena's mother reflects on society's belief that homosexuality sprouts from the dislike of the heteronormative option. On a second instant, there is a revelation that there is another queer character in the family, Tia Pilar, but she's barely talked about, out of shame. And at some point, Elena and Pilar meet as she keeps looking for answers and an authentic place within her family. Pilar reveals the way her sexuality is perceived. "I'm out to the family. It just does not stick. My mom keeps telling them I'm afraid of men because I was attacked by a man in college. Thing is, it was not a man. It was a squirrel, female." This portrays the way the authors are trying to convey the reluctance to accept Pilar's identity and dismiss it while she continues her life married to Susan, a lesbian woman who practices Judaism. Overall, this behavior showcased in One Day at a Time are stereotypes imposed among the LGBTQ community and the way their silence benefits the heteronormative system by being complacent to the demands of the unsupportive and dismissive family. Due to the belief of heterogeneity among societal values and beliefs, there are a myriad of common misconceptions represented through the media. There is a widespread idea of the psychological closet, where queer individuals stay in order to avoid judgmental frowns and eyes from society and close circles. Additionally, the concept of the closet is a byproduct of heteronormativity. This is due to the assumptions made about sexuality and gender identity. In general, there would not be a need for a closet if there was no premise regarding the identity of the individual. Epistemology of the Closet by queer theorist Eve Sedgwick illustrates the idea of the closet and how it participates as a play and construct surrounding identity. Sedgwick claims that closetedness itself is a performance initiated as such by the speech act of a silence. Not a particular silence, but a silence that accrues particularity by fits and starts in relation to the discourse that surrounds and differentially constitutes it. Coincidentally, the concept of epistemological ideas regarding homosexuality emerges from the philosophical study of knowledge. Sedgwick's analysis reveals the narratives that have been present in our heteronormative society due to the factors such as religion and cultural hierarchies. On another note, it reflects how the idea of assimilation of the closet creates an illusion of a hegemonic society. Sedgwick argues that individuals rarely actually escape the closet due to stigma and assumptions made out of stereotypes such as deviant philias. In her book, Sedgwick foresees that it is a seemingly natural trajectory that begins by identifying a place of cultural malleability, continues by inventing an ethical or therapeutic mandate for cultural manipulation, and ends in the overreaching hygienic Western fantasy of a world without any homosexuals in it. In the passage, Sedgwick identifies several factors that are used for the assimilation of the closet into societal rules. Additionally, there is a great majority of institutions that are systemically set against the idea of queerness, as it is argued in the following excerpt. The number of persons or institutions by whom the existence of gay people, never mind the existence of more gay people, is treated as a precious desideratum, a needed condition of life, is small, even compared to those who may wish for the dignified treatment of any gay people who happen to already exist. Advice on how to make sure your kids turn out gay, not to mention your students, your parishioners, your therapy clients, or your military subordinates, is less ubiquitous than you may think. Sedgwick exposes the idea of lack of acceptance and prevalent undesirability among institutions or individuals towards the LGBTQ community. In the young adult show Sex Education, produced and streamed by Netflix, there's little presence of the LGBTQ characters. However, the protagonist's sidekick, Eric, is an African closeted man. The illustration of his attraction tends to be purposely as a hopeless romantic who keeps falling for heterosexual men. In the first season, episode 5, when he finally gathers the strength to suggest and demonstrate his sexual and gender orientation, Eric is attacked by a stranger who happens to be passing by. In order to protect himself, he says, "Please, please, this isn't me. It's just a costume. Just a costume. I was going to see a film with a friend. I am not a..." Therefore, he is assaulted for just wearing a wig and women's clothes. This event takes place after a school party that he decides to attend after coming out to his parents. When coming out to his parents, they were uncomfortably supportive and loving, breaking the stereotypes found among the African diaspora. Eric is routinely harassed and bullied by his fellow classmates, led by the principal's son, Adam. In episode 8 of the first season, they both end up serving detention and are tasked to clean up the band room. As they're cleaning the instruments, they get into a tussle, and Adam somehow winds up on top of Eric. He spits on Adam, and he reciprocates to ask, "How do you like it?" To which Eric replies, "I don't," which leads to Adam saying, "I thought so." Subsequently, they kiss passionately, nothing compared to the previous heterosexual relationships Adam had. His homosexuality is foreshadowed by the lack of interest on the opposite sex that we had seen in the previous episodes. Following the kiss, Adam begins giving Eric oral sex in the band room. After this encounter, Adam threatens Eric to stay silent. He grabs him by his shirt and says, "If you ever tell anyone about this, I will fucking end you." At the same time, the song "He Hit Me and It Felt Like a Kiss" by Grizzly Bear plays in the background, illustrating the abusive nature of their relationship and the pseudo-Stockholm syndrome Eric is a victim of when falling in love with his bully. There is a great amount of repressed tension between them in the following episodes. After the incident, they keep meeting, oddly enough, in a school closet, hiding Adam's sexuality from the school's social circle, both literally and metaphorically. The vague allusion to the concept of the closet refers to Sedgwick's epistemology of the closet when she discusses the ubiquitous, friendly, and accepting circle or institution. The nature of Eric's sexuality is stereotypical as it normalizes abuse and disrespect in their relationship, which is a common assumption made by heteronormative standards. There is no way for a queer individual to hold a healthy and non-toxic relationship. Thus, in some way, they are all destined to suffer for their lifestyle choices. And Adam's case demonstrates internalized homophobia as he feels drawn to Eric but refuses to accept that part of himself. One of the other ways the media has misrepresented the LGBTQ community is through film. It becomes a more intricate relationship due to the fact that films are shorter and tend to be more to the point, often failing to wallow in the complexity of well-rounded characters. For instance, the movie production XXY is a great example, which includes members of the LGBTQ community from all spectrums. The title also makes reference to the theme since XXY is the name of the extra chromosome found within the intersex people. The film portrays the identity struggle of an intersex teen, Alex, and their parents are confidently looking for a solution to their problem of having both sexual organs. Alex mostly possesses outward feminine characteristics, but when they become romantically involved with the son of the surgeon, Alvaro, who is supposed to supply the sex reassignment surgery, it is revealed that Alex has a full functioning penis, with which they engage in anal sex with Alvaro. Then, their parents are portrayed discussing the subject of the surgery for Alex, which oddly enough is a discussion that does not include Alex, who is the intersex person. The surgeon, who also happens to be intersex and has undergone the surgery, tells the father, "I will never wonder how would my life be like if I did not get the surgery." This idolizes the idea of a defined sex and gender identity instead of the personal choice of the person involved. It is often found that the decision whether or not an individual receives the surgery is erroneously decided by their parents at birth, depending on what they would binarily rather have, a boy or girl, usually without considering the future implications or different possibilities in which an intersex individual may identify themselves, disregarding their physical outward characteristics. It is very much considered an unnecessary surgery, as it does not give a solution to any life-threatening condition. This film portrays intersexuality as if it were a problem instead of an attribute and physical characteristic that is part of life and existence. Also, there is the over-sexualization of their identity and intersex attributes. At some point in the movie, Alex gets raped by a gang of bullies. One of them claims, "I just want to see what you got there." Oh well, she has a prick. Actually, she has both. Let's see if she gets hard. I want to see what I can get from you. Thus, being intersex and having a non-conforming gender identity leads to toxic curiosity and sexualization of their existence, eventually leading to the physical, sexual, and or emotional assault of the character. Similarly, the Netflix original production Control C depicts the exploitation and objectification of the transgender female body. This teen drama follows the life of a quiet and observant Mexican girl when everything turns upside down in her high school when a hacker begins to reveal the student's innermost secrets. Isabel becomes the victim of this faceless villain when, during a school assembly, a video regarding her birth name and sex is revealed to the whole school. Isabel, a transgender female character, is subject to an increased rate of bullying, transphobia, stereotyping, and discrimination. As she runs outside of the assembly to take shelter from her classmates' judgmental and sardonic stares, she's interjected by the school's bully, Jerry. He yells, "That's the wrong bathroom." With this comment, he is implying that her identity is not valid. Shortly after, Jerry adds, "Yeah, nobody told us you had a penis. Fucking fag." Basically, her peers and bullies are ignoring the fact that Isabel had undergone sex reassignment surgery. Jerry continues with his demeaning and transphobic remarks by giving Isabel the dare of sword fight. Sword fight. In essence, Isabel's classmates and friends are watching her be mocked and asked to show her genitalia in order to confirm whether she has a penis or not, even though it is well stated that she had already undergone sex reassignment surgery. Previously, Isabel's boyfriend broke up with her because of the revelation regarding her identity as a transgender woman. In another episode, when Isabel's at a party, her ex-boyfriend tries to go back with her by saying, "I love you, please listen to me." And when she refuses, he forcibly begins kissing her and then proceeds to try to rape her. She screams, "Get off me!" and fights him off before she gets the help from her friend Maria. The party incident reflects the sexualization and violence often experienced by transgender women. While there are some characters that embrace Isabel and do not perceive her as a threat, the show still perpetrates toxic stereotypes. Isabel's representation is also an example of Sedgwick's closetedness, as she conceals her identity in order to fit the heterosexual and cisgender establishment to avoid rejection from her classmates and boyfriend. Once her secret is revealed, she is literally forced out of the closet, and she ceases to be the most popular girl in school and becomes the victim of bullying and transphobia. Usually characters tend to be either homosexual or bisexual, as bisexuality tends to be sold as a fetish when presented among women. There's a high prevalence of female queer characters that there are males. There's evidence of lack of gender diversity represented in shows, and there are seldom transgender or transsexual, gender nonconforming, or intersex people found among productions for young adults. As Rebecca Sugar, screenwriter for the young adult show Steven Universe, states, "I think that by excluding the LGBTQ plus content from children's media, a clear statement is being made that this is something that should be ignored. And that people who are feeling this, their feelings should be ignored. They should be ignored. And I think that is wrong." Within the entertainment industry, there are a scarce amount of screenwriters aiming to secure a swift transition into inclusivity and diversity. Effectively, a relevant example that has been transcended in modern entertainment and the exhibition of healthy queerness and sexuality is expressed in the show Steven Universe. This show reveals intersectionality in identity and the idea of represented heterogeneously, including the whole LGBTQ spectrum, from asexual to an aromantic characters such as the gem peridot to intersexuality and gender nonconformism seen with Stevoni. Steven Universe provides a platform for those who have never been identified with any characters found in popular mainstream media. For instance, Peridot shows this interest in fusion, which is the gem's way of reproduction in order to create a new different gem. When Steven practices fusion with Connie, as Steven is a half gem, half human, and Connie is completely human, Stevoni becomes 25% gem and 75% human, something that has never been seen before. In episode 37 from season 1, Stevoni pulls out their tablet and shows their Instagram account. Their bio reveals that Stevoni is intersex, non-binary, and identifies with they/them pronouns. In addition, they also include that they are an experience. On the other hand, in one of the episodes, Garnet is revealed to be the permanent fusion of Ruby and Sapphire, portraying the healthy and committed relationship between two characters fused to become one entity. Most shows portray queerness to be the root of all suffering and disgrace among many characters. With the inclusion of a positive and loving queer relationship, Steven Universe breaks the pattern of stereotypical toxicity and the heteronormativity found among most young adult shows. In conclusion, the misrepresentation of queerness in contemporary entertainment is prevailing within the more accepting contemporary media. There is a recurrent issue presenting patterns of stereotypical portrayal, demeaning characteristics, villainization, and the lack of relevant plots for queer individuals. With analysis based on the knowledge imparted by queer theory aspects, such as Eve Sedgwick and Judith Butler, there is ample evidence supporting their theories among young adult media nowadays. Ranging from the performative gender theory to the concepts of closetedness are still applicable to the queer experience and its subsequent representation on TV. Although there are shows such as Steven Universe performers that represent and provide a positive portrayal and light to the community, most do not follow those standards, engaging in microaggressions towards the showcase LGBTQ community. In the end, there is a need for the entertainment industry to become more educated regarding the pressing issues that affect the LGBTQ community and treat its representation with respect and dignity, free of heteronormativity and stereotypical gaze, in order to create a proper sense of inclusion.